She said she couldn't have children, but the rancher got the 610 woman pregnant, white heavy check mark. At 6 feet 10 inches, she towered over most people, yet she moved with a grace and gentleness that surprised those who met her. People often stared at her in awe, some out of admiration, others out of curiosity. From a young age, Emma learned to embrace her uniqueness, understanding that she could never fit into the small boxes that society often tried to force people into. She had dreams, ambitions, and a strong sense of independence that guided every decision she made. Despite her height and physical presence, Emma's life had not been without its challenges. Doctors had told her years ago that she might not be able to have children. At first, the news was devastating. Like many young women, she had imagined one day starting a family, filling a house with laughter and the tiny sounds of little feet running around. But as the years passed, Emma came to accept her reality. She found other ways to fill her life with love and meaning, through friendships, passions, and the work she enjoyed. Emma lived on the outskirts of a small town, in a quiet house surrounded by open fields. Her life was simple, and she liked it that way. She had a job that allowed her to be independent, and she spent her free time enjoying long walks in nature, reading, and exploring her hobbies. While she often felt a twinge of sadness when she thought about the family she would never have, she had built a life filled with small joys and meaningful experiences. One summer morning, the kind of bright, warm day that makes the world feel full of possibility, Emma found herself helping a neighbor with some farm equipment. She had always been strong, and lifting heavy tools and moving machinery was something she did naturally. On this particular day, she was adjusting a large piece of equipment that had broken down near the edge of a wide-open field. The sun beat down on her shoulders, and the sound of birds filled the air. Luke, a rancher from the same town, was passing by on his way to check on the cattle. He noticed Emma immediately. Her height and strength were impossible to miss, but it was more than that. There was a quiet determination in the way she worked, a focus and independence that caught his attention. Luke was used to seeing strong people in his line of work, but there was something different about Emma. He stopped for a moment, leaning against his truck, just to watch her work. At first, Emma didn't notice him. She was focused on the task at hand, moving parts and fixing what needed fixing with precision. But when she finally stood up, wiping sweat from her brow, she noticed him watching her. "Hi," she said, her voice calm but curious. "Can I help you with something?" Luke smiled, slightly embarrassed that he had been caught staring. No," he said. "Just passing by, didn't mean to interrupt." Emma nodded, sizing him up. He was tall, rugged, and had the kind of presence that made you feel safe immediately. He had a kind face with warm eyes that seemed to understand more than words could say. There was an ease about him, a patience that made Emma feel strangely comfortable. "Are you new around here?" she asked, more out of curiosity than anything else. "Not really," Luke replied. "I grew up just a few miles from here. I just don't usually come this way." They talked for a few minutes, exchanging pleasantries about the weather, the town, and the farm work. Emma found herself laughing at something Luke said, a light, easy laugh that surprised even her. It had been a long time since she had felt such a genuine connection with someone she had just met. Most people were intimidated by her height and presence, but Luke didn't seem the slightest bit fazed. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Luke continued to run into each other. Sometimes it was by chance, at the local store, at a neighbor's house, or on the road leading to the ranch. Other times, it seemed like he found reasons to stop by, helping with chores or checking on things around her property. Each encounter was casual, friendly, but there was an unspoken curiosity building between them. They learned about each other slowly. Emma shared small stories about her life, her passions, and the things that made her happy. Luke shared stories about the ranch, the challenges of working with livestock, and the satisfaction of a job done well. Despite her initial caution, Emma began to look forward to these encounters. There was something about Luke's presence that made her feel understood in a way few people ever had. He never made her feel self-conscious about her height or her struggles, and he listened without judgment. For the first time in a long while, Emma allowed herself to feel a spark of hope that life could hold something unexpected, something joyful. Yet, even as she enjoyed their growing friendship, Emma could not ignore the lingering doubts in her mind. Her past experiences with doctors and the knowledge that having children might not be possible weighed on her. She had built walls around her heart, walls she was careful not to let anyone climb over too quickly. Luke, with his patience and quiet confidence, seemed like someone who could understand her hesitation. But even with that understanding, Emma couldn't help but wonder if she could ever allow herself to imagine a future that included love, family, or even the possibility of a child. One afternoon, as the summer sun began to dip toward the horizon, Luke offered to show Emma a new area of the ranch that he had been restoring. She agreed, intrigued by the opportunity to see more of his world. Walking across the open fields, the wind whipping past them, Emma felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. They talked about their dreams, fears, and the small joys of life. Luke shared a memory from his childhood about learning to ride horses, while Emma talked about the books that had shaped her view of the world. In that moment, something shifted. Emma realized that, despite her fears and past disappointments, she felt a connection to Luke that she couldn't ignore. It was a rare, quiet feeling of safety, acceptance, and even excitement. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt a spark of curiosity and hope that made her heart beat a little faster. As they walked back toward her house, the sun setting behind them painted the sky in shades of pink and orange. Emma felt a warmth that had little to do with the temperature. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine that life might hold surprises, and that perhaps, just perhaps, there was room in her life for someone like Luke. That evening, as she sat on her porch reflecting on the day, Emma realized that life had a way of bringing people together when they least expected it. She had been living a quiet, independent life for years, accepting limitations and focusing on what she could control. But now, with Luke in her world, she began to see that some things, connections, friendships, and perhaps even love, could not be planned or predicted. They simply happened. Emma didn't know what the future would hold, or whether her life would change in ways she could never imagine. But one thing was certain: the encounter with Luke had opened a door she thought was closed forever. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, she felt a sense of anticipation, curiosity, and a little excitement that life, even at its most unexpected, could be beautiful and full of surprises. Little did she know, that simple meeting on a sunny summer day would set the stage for a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself, her future, and the possibilities of life. After their first few encounters, Emma and Luke's friendship began to grow steadily. It started with casual greetings and small talk, but soon their conversations became more meaningful. They shared details about their lives, their dreams, and even their fears. Emma, who had always been cautious about opening her heart to anyone, found herself slowly letting Luke in. She noticed how patient he was, how he listened without judgment, and how he never made her feel self-conscious about her height or the things she believed set her apart from others. Luke, on his part, admired Emma's independence and strength. He had met many people in his life, but there was something different about her. She had a quiet confidence that came from years of handling life on her own. At the same time, there was a softness beneath her strength, a vulnerability she didn't often show. Luke found himself drawn to that combination, fascinated by how she could be both strong and gentle at the same time. Over the next few weeks, they began spending more time together. Luke would invite Emma to help on the ranch, and she, in turn, found herself accepting more often than she expected. She enjoyed the physical work. It made her feel capable and alive, but what she valued most was the company. Working side by side, they began to understand each other in ways that words alone could not convey. There was a rhythm to their interactions, a natural ease that made their time together comfortable and enjoyable. Neighbors and friends soon began to notice their growing closeness. People in small towns are often keen observers, and it wasn't long before whispers began. "Have you noticed Emma and Luke?" someone would ask. They seemed to be spending a lot of time together. Emma was aware of the rumors but chose not to let them bother her. She was cautious by nature, and she didn't want to rush anything. Still, the attention made her reflect on her feelings. She realized that Luke had become more than just a friend. He had become someone she genuinely cared about, someone she could imagine having in her life in a deeper way. Despite the growing bond, Emma's past fears lingered. Her medical history had always been a shadow in her life, a reminder that some dreams might not be possible. She had accepted the possibility that she might never have children, and the thought had shaped many of her life choices. Opening her heart to Luke meant confronting those fears. She wondered, quietly and sometimes anxiously, if he would understand, if he would accept her fully even with her limitations. One afternoon, Luke noticed her hesitation. They were sitting on the edge of the field, watching the sun dip low in the sky when he gently asked, "Emma, you seem a little quiet today. Something on your mind?" Emma took a deep breath. She had come to trust Luke, and she knew he would listen. "It's just, there are things about my life that are complicated," she said softly. "Things that make me, well, different from most people." Luke looked at her with patience and understanding. "You don't have to explain right now," he said. "I just want you to know that whatever it is, I'm here for you. No judgment, no rush, just support." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. Few people had ever offered her such understanding without pushing her to explain or fix herself. She realized that Luke was different. He didn't see her limitations as flaws, but as part of who she was. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, she could allow herself to imagine a future that included him. As summer deepened, their bond continued to grow. They shared simple joys, picnics by the river, walks through the fields, and quiet evenings on the porch talking about their day. Emma found herself laughing more, feeling lighter than she had in years. Luke's presence was comforting, steady, and reassuring. She began to look forward to their time together, cherishing the small moments that built the foundation of their connection. At the same time, Luke was learning about Emma's world. He saw her independence firsthand, the way she managed her life with confidence and care. He admired her discipline and the quiet courage she displayed every day. He also saw her vulnerabilities, the fears she carried about her medical history and her future. But rather than seeing these as obstacles, he saw them as part of the woman he was growing to care about deeply. One day, while working together to repair a section of the barn, Emma suddenly paused, looking thoughtful. "Luke," she said slowly, "I need to tell you something important. I've never really told anyone this before. I may not be able to have children." Luke stopped what he was doing and looked at her, his expression calm and steady. "Thank you for telling me," he said gently. "That doesn't change how I feel about you. It doesn't define what our future could be. We'll face everything together, whatever comes our way." Emma felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had expected hesitation, maybe even pity, but Luke's response was nothing like that. His words were filled with acceptance and reassurance. She realized that she could trust him with her heart, and that trust was something she had rarely given to anyone. Their relationship began to take on a deeper meaning after that conversation. Emma felt more open, more willing to share her thoughts and feelings. Luke became not only a companion in daily life, but a source of emotional support. They encouraged each other, celebrated small victories, and comforted one another through challenges. Slowly, they built a partnership that went beyond friendship, a bond rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and care. Despite their growing closeness, there were still challenges. Emma's past fears sometimes resurfaced, and she struggled with moments of doubt. She worried about the future, about how life might test them, and about the limitations she had accepted for so long. Luke, however, remained patient. He never pressured her, never rushed her, and never made her feel inadequate. His calm presence allowed Emma to confront her fears without feeling overwhelmed. The small-town community continued to notice their bond. People whispered, shared stories, and watched as the friendship blossomed into something more. Some were curious, some were supportive, and a few were skeptical. Emma didn't let the opinions of others dictate her feelings. She was learning to trust her own instincts and to recognize the value of a genuine connection. Luke, too, remained focused on their relationship, grounded in reality and guided by respect and care. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the porch, Emma reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. She thought about the initial encounters, the quiet conversations, and the small moments of connection that had led to this point. She realized that life had a way of surprising people, of opening doors they didn't even know existed. And in that moment, she allowed herself to feel a sense of hope, a feeling she had thought she would never experience again. Luke, noticing the thoughtful expression on her face, reached over and gently took her hand. "Whatever comes next," he said softly, "we'll figure it out together, no matter what." Emma looked at him, feeling a mix of emotions, gratitude, affection, and a newfound sense of possibility. She realized that her life, which had once felt constrained by limitations, was now opening to new experiences, new feelings, and a connection that went deeper than she had ever imagined. Their friendship had grown into something meaningful, a bond built on trust, understanding, and shared experiences. They were learning that life didn't always go according to plan, and that sometimes the most unexpected connections could bring the greatest joy. Emma had come to understand that opening her heart, even with the risk of disappointment, was worth it. Luke had become a constant in her life, someone who not only accepted her as she was, but inspired her to embrace the possibilities of the future. As summer began to fade and the days grew shorter, Emma and Luke continued their routine, each encounter strengthening the bond between them. They shared laughter, hard work, and quiet moments of reflection. The foundation of trust and friendship they had built was solid, and both felt the subtle shift from companionship to something deeper, something that neither of them had anticipated, but both were beginning to welcome. Emma no longer feared what the future might hold. She had learned that life's surprises could be beautiful, that trust and patience could lead to profound connections, and that even the things she had accepted as impossible might change in ways she couldn't predict. And with Luke by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges and joys life would bring next. Little did Emma know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would test their relationship, challenge their beliefs, and ultimately lead to a miracle that neither of them had ever expected. As their friendship continued to grow, Emma and Luke found themselves sharing more than just daily routines or small talk. They began to talk about their dreams, their fears, and the experiences that had shaped them. Emma had always been cautious about opening her heart, and Luke understood that patience would be key. He didn't rush her, didn't ask for more than she was ready to give. Instead, he offered consistency, support, and understanding, qualities Emma had learned to value deeply in people. However, despite their growing closeness, doubts lingered in Emma's mind. Her medical history was always at the back of her thoughts. She had been told years ago that she might not be able to have children, and those words had stayed with her. Over time, she had built walls around her heart, protecting herself from disappointment and unfulfilled dreams. The idea of opening herself to a deeper relationship with Luke was exciting, yet terrifying. What if she allowed herself to hope, only to be reminded of the limitations she had learned to accept? One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun slowly sink behind the hills, Emma felt a familiar tension in her chest. She loved spending time with Luke, but the fear of what the future might hold always surfaced when she let herself imagine possibilities. Luke noticed her quiet demeanor and gently asked, "Emma, you've been quiet tonight. What's on your mind?" Emma hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "It's just, sometimes I wonder if I can ever have a normal life, you know. A life like most people dream of, with a family, children. All those things I've learned might not be possible for me." Luke reached over and took her hand in his grip warm and steady. "Emma, I care about you. I care about everything that makes you who you are. Your past, your fears, your hopes, they're all part of you, and none of that changes how I feel. We'll face everything together, one step at a time." His words resonated deeply with her. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, truly seen, and not judged for her fears or her past. She realized that Luke's presence in her life was more than just comforting, it was transformative. His patience and unwavering support gave her the courage to consider a future she had long thought impossible. Over the next few weeks, Emma found herself opening up more, sharing memories and experiences she had never spoken about. She told Luke about her childhood, her struggles with feeling different because of her height, and the disappointment she had felt when doctors told her she might never have children. Luke listened attentively, never interrupting or offering empty reassurances. Instead, he simply held space for her, allowing her to speak freely and be vulnerable without fear. Luke also began to share parts of his life that he hadn't discussed with many people. He told Emma about the challenges of running a ranch, the hard work it required, and the pride he took in his responsibilities. He spoke about the moments of solitude he cherished, the quiet mornings he spent with the animals, and the satisfaction of a day's work well done. Through these conversations, Emma began to see the depth of his character, the resilience, dedication, and gentle strength that had first drawn her to him. Despite their growing intimacy, there were still moments of doubt and insecurity. Emma worried about what the future might hold if she allowed herself to hope for more than friendship. She feared that her limitations might prevent them from ever experiencing certain joys, especially the joy of having a family. Luke, sensing her hesitation, never pushed her but instead offered reassurance through actions rather than words. He continued to include her in his life, sought her opinions, and made her feel valued and respected every day. One rainy afternoon, as they worked together in the barn repairing a section of the roof, Emma's fears bubbled to the surface. The rain tapped softly on the wooden beams above them, and the smell of wet earth filled the air. "Luke," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty, "I don't know if I can, if I should, I mean about a future with you. I don't want to get my hopes up only to be disappointed." Luke paused, setting down the tools he was holding. He wiped his hands on his jeans and looked at her with steady eyes. "Emma, I understand your fears, but I also know that life is unpredictable. We can't control everything, and we can't let fear dictate our happiness. What we can do is support each other, care for each other, and take life as it comes. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Emma felt a sense of relief mixed with gratitude. His words weren't magic, but they were real and grounded. They reminded her that life didn't have to be perfect to be meaningful, and that love could exist even in the presence of uncertainty. As the weeks turned into months, Emma and Luke's relationship deepened. They spent long days together on the ranch, working side by side, and long evenings talking under the stars. Each shared experience, each moment of laughter, and even the occasional disagreement helped them understand each other more fully. They learned how to communicate effectively, how to compromise, and how to be patient with one another. Emma began to notice subtle changes in herself. She felt more confident, more willing to take risks, and more open to the possibilities of the future. Luke's unwavering support gave her the courage to imagine a life that included love and partnership, something she had long thought unattainable. She started to believe that, despite the limitations she had accepted for years, life could still surprise her in beautiful ways. The small town continued to notice the growing bond between them. Neighbors offered smiles, friendly advice, and sometimes teasing comments about how well they seemed to get along. Emma, who had always valued her independence, found that she didn't mind the attention as much as she thought she would. It was a reminder that her connection with Luke was real and meaningful, and that others could see the strength of their relationship as well. One evening, as they walked through a field bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, Luke stopped and looked at Emma. "You know," he said, "I've been thinking, life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes the things we think we can't have turn out to be possible in ways we never imagined." Emma smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I hope you're right," she replied softly. "I really do." Luke took her hand in his, squeezing it gently. "I am right. And even if things don't go exactly as we hope, we'll face it together. That's what matters." For the first time in years, Emma felt a sense of possibility that went beyond cautious optimism. She allowed herself to hope, not recklessly, but with the understanding that life's uncertainties were part of its beauty. She realized that her fears, while valid, did not have to define her future. With Luke by her side, she could imagine a life filled with love, partnership, and perhaps even the joys she had once thought impossible. Their bond continued to grow, not just through shared activities, but through the emotional intimacy that comes from trusting someone with your heart. Emma began to see that vulnerability was not weakness, but strength. She had allowed herself to be seen, fully and honestly, and in doing so had found a connection that was rare and profound. Luke, too, was learning about the depth of their relationship. He recognized the courage it took for Emma to open up, and he cherished the trust she placed in him. He understood that love was not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but about consistency, respect, and shared experiences. Every act of care, every moment of patience, and every conversation deepened the foundation of their relationship. As autumn approached, bringing cooler temperatures and golden leaves, Emma reflected on how far she had come. From a life constrained by fear and self-doubt, she had moved into a space of possibility and hope. She had learned that opening her heart, even with the risk of disappointment, could lead to profound joy. And she had learned that the right person could make all the difference, someone who accepted her fully, who understood her fears, and who inspired her to believe in the unexpected. Little did Emma know, the journey she and Luke were on was leading to a moment that would challenge their relationship, test their beliefs, and ultimately bring a miracle neither of them had ever imagined. But for now, she allowed herself to live in the present, to enjoy the growing connection with Luke, and to embrace the hope that life could hold unexpected blessings. In the quiet of the evening, as they watched the stars begin to appear in the sky, Emma felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Life was unpredictable and the future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to face whatever came next, with Luke by her side. As the months passed, Emma and Luke's bond deepened in ways neither of them could have imagined. Their friendship had grown into a strong, steady love built on trust, patience, and shared experiences. They had weathered doubts, insecurities, and the challenges of small-town life, and through it all, their connection had only strengthened. Life on the ranch, with its long days of work and quiet evenings, gave them ample time to grow close, to learn about each other, and to build a foundation that promised something lasting. Emma had become more comfortable with the idea of a future that included Luke. She no longer feared the unknown as intensely as before. While her medical history still lingered in the back of her mind, it had begun to feel less like a barrier and more like just one part of her life. With Luke's unwavering support, she allowed herself to imagine possibilities she had long thought impossible, possibilities of love, partnership, and even family. One crisp autumn morning, as the first hints of frost touched the fields, Emma woke feeling slightly different than usual. She couldn't immediately place it, but there was a strange mix of excitement and nervousness in her chest. The feeling stayed with her throughout the day, even as she helped Luke with the morning chores. They worked side by side, moving hay bales, checking fences, and feeding the animals. Luke noticed a quietness in her, a thoughtful look that hadn't been there before. "Emma," he said gently, pausing as he wiped sweat from his forehead, "you seem distracted today. Is everything okay?" Emma hesitated, unsure of how to voice the strange mix of feelings she was experiencing. She had always been cautious, but now something inside her urged honesty. "I don't know yet," she admitted softly. "It's hard to explain. I just have this feeling that something has changed." Luke gave her a reassuring smile. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together," he said, "no matter what." That evening, after the day's work was done, Emma decided to act on her curiosity. She went to the local clinic to take a test she had never thought she would take. As she waited for the results, her mind raced. Could it really be? Was it possible that after all she had believed, something unexpected was happening? The anticipation was both thrilling and terrifying, and when the nurse finally handed her the results, Emma's hands trembled. She stared at the paper for a long moment, trying to make sense of the words, and then slowly a realization dawned on her. She was pregnant. The news was overwhelming. Emma had spent years accepting the possibility that she might never have children, and now here was the proof that life could surprise her in the most unimaginable way. Her emotions were a swirl of disbelief, joy, fear, and hope. She thought of Luke immediately, imagining his reaction, his smile, and the way he had always been there for her through every challenge. Emma took a deep breath and drove to the ranch, the autumn leaves crunching beneath her tires. When she arrived, she found Luke checking the fences near the barn. She stepped out of the car, her heart pounding, and called his name. "Luke," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of excitement and nerves. He looked up, concern flashing across his face. "Emma." "What's wrong?" Emma smiled through tears, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "Luke, I'm pregnant." For a moment, Luke didn't say anything. He just stared at her, processing the news. Then slowly, a broad smile spread across his face. He stepped toward her and took her hands in his. "Are you serious?" he asked, his voice full of awe. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, I didn't think it was possible, but it is." Luke pulled her into a gentle embrace, holding her close as if to protect her from the overwhelming emotions they both felt. "This is amazing," he whispered. "I can't believe it. We're going to have a baby." Emma laughed through her tears, the sound a mixture of relief and joy. For so long, she had accepted limitations she thought she could never overcome, and now life had handed her a miracle. Luke's excitement was infectious, and together, they celebrated the news in the quiet of the ranch, surrounded by the familiar sights and sounds that had been part of their shared journey. The days that followed were filled with a whirlwind of emotions and preparations. Emma and Luke made appointments with doctors, shared the news with close friends and family, and began imagining the future in ways they had never dared before. The small town, which had already been watching their relationship with curiosity, erupted with joy and congratulations. People were inspired by their story, the unexpected miracle of a pregnancy that defied expectations. Despite the excitement, there were moments of anxiety as well. Emma worried about the health of the pregnancy, about the challenges ahead, and about how life would change with a child. Luke remained by her side, patient and supportive, always reassuring her that they would face every challenge together. He helped with chores, listened to her fears, and reminded her that they were a team. Emma began to notice subtle changes in her daily life. She felt more aware of her body, more protective of her well-being, and more attuned to the life growing inside her. Each day brought new surprises, a shift in energy, a new sense of connection to the child, and a growing excitement for the future. Luke shared in every moment, marveling at the small signs and cherishing the experience as deeply as Emma did. The miracle of the pregnancy also brought Emma and Luke closer together in ways they hadn't anticipated. They spent hours talking about names, imagining what their child might look like, and planning the life they wanted to provide. It was a time of hope, anticipation, and shared dreams. Emma realized that life had a way of offering second chances, of creating opportunities where she had thought none existed. And Luke's unwavering support made her feel safe and loved in a way that allowed her to fully embrace the possibilities before her. The small town continued to be fascinated by their story. Neighbors stopped by to offer congratulations, friends shared advice and encouragement, and even strangers seemed inspired by the miracle that had unfolded. Emma and Luke, however, remained grounded, focusing on the reality of the pregnancy and the life they were building together. They knew that while the news was extraordinary, the most important thing was the care, love, and preparation they offered to each other and their future child. As the seasons shifted and winter approached, Emma and Luke adapted to the changes in their lives. They continued to work on the ranch, sharing responsibilities and supporting one another, while also preparing for the arrival of their baby. Emma's strength and resilience, once focused solely on herself and her independence, now extended to nurturing the life growing within her. Luke's dedication, patience, and love became more evident with each passing day, as he worked tirelessly to ensure their home and ranch were ready for the next chapter. One quiet evening, as snow began to fall gently over the fields, Emma sat by the window, feeling the baby move for the first time. She placed her hand on her stomach, a mixture of awe and gratitude filling her heart. Luke knelt beside her, placing his hand over hers, and together they shared a moment of quiet wonder. "I can't believe this is happening," Emma whispered. Luke smiled, his eyes shining with emotion. "Neither can I," he said softly, "but it is, and we'll face everything together." In that moment, Emma realized how much her life had changed. The fears and limitations that had once defined her existence had been replaced by hope, love, and the miracle of new life. She had learned that life could be unpredictable, that joy could come when least expected, and that with the right person by her side, even the most impossible dreams could become reality. The coming months were filled with anticipation, preparations, and the quiet excitement of expecting a child. Emma and Luke continued to strengthen their bond, discovering new depths of love, patience, and mutual respect. The ranch, once a place of hard work and routine, had become a home filled with hope, laughter, and the promise of new beginnings. By the time winter was in full swing, Emma and Luke had embraced the reality of their miracle. The story of a woman who had believed she could never have children, and the rancher who had changed everything, had become an inspiration to those around them. But for Emma and Luke, it wasn't about the attention or the whispers. It was about the life they were creating together, the love they shared, and the family they were about to bring into the world. As they sat together by the fire one evening, hands intertwined, Emma looked at Luke and whispered, "I never imagined this could happen. I didn't think I'd ever experience something so incredible." Luke smiled, holding her close. "Life has a way of surprising us, Emma. Sometimes the things we think we can't have turn out to be the most beautiful parts of our journey." And in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of the fire, the quiet of the ranch, and the love they shared, Emma knew that life had indeed brought her a miracle, one that would change everything forever. As winter slowly gave way to spring, Emma and Luke's lives were transformed in ways they had only dreamed of. The ranch, once a place of routine and labor, had become a home full of anticipation, laughter, and quiet joy. Every corner of the house seemed to reflect the change in their lives. Tiny baby clothes neatly folded on shelves, a small crib set up by the window, and soft blankets that Emma had carefully chosen. Each item was a symbol of the new chapter unfolding before them, a chapter filled with hope, love, and possibility. Emma had grown accustomed to the changes in her body and the life growing within her. The pregnancy, which had initially filled her with awe and nervousness, had become a source of quiet wonder. She marveled at every movement, every little sign that a tiny life was developing inside her. Luke was equally mesmerized, often resting his hand gently on her stomach, feeling the small kicks and speaking softly to the child. Their bond deepened not just as partners, but as expectant parents, united by the miracle they were experiencing together. Life on the ranch continued as usual, yet every task and every moment seemed touched by the presence of the baby. Luke found joy in sharing responsibilities with Emma in ways that felt natural and collaborative. He helped prepare meals, organized baby supplies, and even painted the nursery himself, taking pride in every detail. Emma, in turn, embraced the changes in her life with courage and grace, balancing the demands of her pregnancy with the ongoing work on the ranch. Together, they learned how to navigate the challenges of daily life while cherishing the moments that brought them closer as a family. Friends and neighbors watched their journey with admiration and curiosity. The story of Emma, the woman who had believed she could never have children, and Luke, the steadfast rancher who had shared her life and brought her hopes to life, had spread throughout the town. People came by to offer congratulations, support, and sometimes practical advice. Emma and Luke welcomed the attention warmly, but remained focused on their own lives, recognizing that the most important thing was the love and care they shared, not the opinions of others. As the weeks passed, Emma noticed subtle changes in herself and in the dynamic between her and Luke. She felt more confident, more connected, and more willing to embrace the unexpected turns of life. The pregnancy had opened a new layer of emotion and awareness, bringing with it both joy and responsibility. Luke noticed the shift as well. He admired her strength and resilience even more, understanding that the challenges they faced were part of the profound journey they were on together. One warm spring evening, they took a quiet walk through the fields, the grass soft beneath their feet and the sun casting a golden glow across the landscape. Emma rested her hand on her growing belly, feeling the gentle movements of their child. "I can't believe how real this all feels now," she whispered. Luke smiled, wrapping his arm around her shoulder. "It's real because it's ours," he said softly. "Everything we've been through, every challenge, every doubt, it led us to this moment. And now we get to bring a new life into the world together." Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had spent so many years believing that a life like this might never be possible, yet here she was, standing beside Luke, feeling the heartbeat of their child, and imagining the future with hope and excitement. It was a feeling she had never thought she would experience, complete and overwhelming joy. The months continued to pass, filled with small milestones and joyful anticipation. Emma and Luke attended prenatal checkups, learning more about the baby's growth and development. Each appointment was a reminder of the miracle they were experiencing, and each time they left, their excitement and sense of responsibility grew. They spoke often about the kind of parents they wanted to be, about the values and lessons they hoped to share, and about the love and support they intended to give unconditionally. Despite the happiness, there were moments of uncertainty, as any expectant parents face. Emma worried about the health of the baby and the challenges of labor, while Luke worried about ensuring he could provide a safe and supportive environment. Yet, these concerns only strengthened their partnership. They leaned on each other, shared their fears openly, and found comfort in the knowledge that they were not alone. The love and trust they had cultivated over the months became their greatest source of strength. Neighbors and friends continued to offer support, bringing meals, advice, and congratulations. Some shared stories of their own experiences, while others simply offered words of encouragement. Emma and Luke appreciated the sense of community but focused primarily on each other and the new life they were nurturing. They found joy in the simple moments, quiet evenings together, the sound of the wind through the fields, and the anticipation of the baby's arrival. As the due date approached, Emma and Luke prepared both practically and emotionally. They made sure the nursery was ready, the baby's clothing and supplies organized, and their schedules adjusted to accommodate the demands of parenthood. They also took time to strengthen their emotional connection, talking about their hopes for the future and the ways they would support each other as they entered this new phase of life. One sunny afternoon, while sitting on the porch and watching the fields stretch out toward the horizon, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She thought about the years she had spent believing that having children was impossible, the moments of doubt and fear, and the unexpected turns that had led her to Luke. She realized how far she had come, not just physically with the pregnancy, but emotionally and spiritually as well. She had learned to trust life's surprises, to open her heart despite uncertainty, and to embrace love in its fullest form. Luke, noticing her thoughtful expression, gently took her hand. "You've come a long way, Emma," he said softly, "and so have we. Together, we've turned what seemed impossible into something beautiful." Emma smiled, feeling tears prick at her eyes. "I never imagined this could happen," she admitted. "I never imagined that life could bring me something so incredible." Luke pulled her into a gentle hug. "Life has a way of surprising us," he said. "And now, we have the chance to build a future that's more wonderful than either of us could have imagined." The day finally came when Emma went into labor. It was a moment filled with anticipation, excitement, and a touch of nervousness. Luke stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, offering words of encouragement, and sharing in the wonder of the experience. The hours passed slowly, filled with the intensity and emotion of bringing new life into the world. Emma drew strength from Luke's presence, and Luke drew strength from her courage and determination. And then, in a moment that would forever change their lives, their baby was born. The tiny cries, the soft warmth, and the overwhelming sense of love and responsibility filled the room. Emma held the child in her arms, tears of joy streaming down her face, while Luke rested beside her, equally moved and amazed by the miracle they had created together. The first weeks of parenthood were a mixture of sleepless nights, tender moments, and profound joy. Emma and Luke adapted to their new roles with patience, learning from each other and supporting one another in every challenge. They marveled at the small milestones, the first smile, the tiny hands and feet, the sounds of cooing and laughter. Their home was now filled with the sounds and energy of life, a constant reminder of the journey that had brought them here. Neighbors and friends visited, offering congratulations and support. Emma and Luke appreciated the community, but the focus remained on their little family. They reveled in the simple joys of parenthood, the quiet moments in the nursery, walks through the fields with the baby, and the growing bond between them as they navigated this new chapter together. As the months passed, Emma and Luke settled into a rhythm that worked for them. Life was not without its challenges, but the love they shared made every difficulty manageable. They learned to balance responsibilities, celebrate successes, and support each other in moments of fatigue or doubt. Their relationship, once defined by friendship and growing affection, had evolved into a strong, unshakable partnership grounded in love, trust, and shared experiences. Emma often reflected on the miraculous journey that had brought them to this point. She thought about the fears and limitations she had once believed defined her life, and she marveled at how those limitations had been overcome in ways she could never have imagined. Luke had been a constant presence, a source of strength and support, and together they had built a family filled with love, hope, and joy. In the quiet evenings, when the ranch was calm and the baby slept peacefully, Emma and Luke would sit together, hands intertwined, and reflect on their journey. They spoke of the challenges they had faced, the lessons they had learned, and the joy of creating a life together. Emma felt a deep sense of gratitude for Luke, for the child they had brought into the world, and for the unexpected twists of fate that had led them here. And so, their story reached a moment of fulfillment. Emma, once filled with doubt about her future and her ability to have children, had experienced a miracle that surpassed her wildest hopes. Luke, the steadfast rancher, had shared in the journey every step of the way, proving that love, patience, and commitment could overcome obstacles and create something truly extraordinary. Their lives continued on the ranch, filled with the routines of work, the joys of parenthood, and the quiet moments of reflection that made life meaningful. Emma and Luke had learned that life was unpredictable, that love could take many forms, and that hope and perseverance could lead to miracles. And in the warmth of their home, surrounded by the love of their child and each other, they found a sense of completeness, joy, and a future filled with endless possibilities.